everybody, welcome back to Ask Mr. Wonderful. Another fantastic episode about to happen. You know, I love to collaborate with people, particularly ones that travel all around the world, because all of our questions are global these days. We get them from everywhere. And that's exactly who I've got today. Welcome, Erik Conover. You're kind of legendary on YouTube already. You've built a little franchise here running around all over the place. Tell us your story.
So the short version, I started YouTube about 4 years ago, kind of just dipping my feet in. I had no experience in video making or editing.
Who did?
Exactly. I taught myself actually by YouTube how to edit these little videos, and at the start they were just horrible. Kind of unwatchable, to be honest, the majority. And then slowly but surely I got better at filmmaking and editing and built out a luxury lifestyle travel brand.
That's interesting. So by the nature of your content, you have to travel. So I'm going to take you love doing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, traveling, I grew up right outside of Atlantic City in southern New Jersey. Middle class family, but we had never traveled. My first time on a plane, I was 24.
You got to be kidding.
Yeah.
Were you shaking in your boots?
Excited as I could be.
I remember my first time, but I was very, very young. It never ceases to amaze me. I just love flying around. But obviously, if you're going to be doing this, how do you curate where you're going? Where do you know where you want to go next? Because I'm assuming your base wants to know what's next for you.
Exactly. So there's a few ways how I kind of build out this schedule. First off, it's places that I think that my audience would find interesting.
That they'd want to go to.
Yeah, exactly.
And they haven't been there yet.
Yeah, and places that I have a little, a bucket list as well.
So crazy chicken places.
More or less, yes.
All right. You go there, you shoot, and I assume at the end of the day, I would want to watch you because you're learning something and you're teaching me about it at the same time. That's what you're doing. You're curating travel.
That's right.
You've been wildly successful at it.
Yeah, I like to think that traveling, it started as a passion and then it slowly turned into the business. So I didn't go into it looking to build out a travel business and have the guides going out. It was more or less just because I had the passion to travel, and then the rest kind of happened naturally.
Now, every time I get a successful YouTuber like you on, people ask questions about how do you sustain it? How do you maintain it? Is this what your passion is in terms of being an entrepreneur? How are you going to grow it? What's the game plan? Are you willing to share some secrets with all of those that want to become you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, in the beginning, there wasn't a game plan at all, to be totally honest. Kind of just flying by the seat of my pants. But really, in the past 2 years, I've developed a 5-year plan where I really want to take this. And that's a very big period of time, 5 years.
So what are your revenue streams that you focus on with your time?
Yeah, so right now it is AdSense through YouTube.
Of course, everybody starts with that base.
Yeah, exactly. And it depends on your content, right? Some of the creators who have content that isn't so family friendly, they've been hit hard with the new policies that YouTube has put in place. But my content is travel.
I think society is forcing that on everybody. I mean, that's what people want. I mean, look, from a creative artist point of view, I can see them calling it censorship. On the other hand, it's the reality that we live in. Yes, they have been hit hard. Obviously, you are very family friendly in what you do.
That's right.
So you don't have that problem.
That's right. So AdSense is definitely up there.
So that means other advertisers are interested in you because you're not going to offend anybody, right?
Correct.
Well, that's good business.
Yeah, I mean, the past year, I really went into the brand partnerships just because the opportunities are endless, right? And then
You use an agency to find them, or you're doing it yourself?
I would say 90% is inbound to my inbox. Then the other 10% is through agencies. Recently, I started working with a larger agency that is more rooted in traditional media, just to expand opportunities so they can be actively pitching my brand rather than having it just be inbound opportunities.
When you're negotiating the deal yourself, how do you price yourself? Because you don't have the benefit of all the data the agency has. You're just winging it out there.
It's interesting you say that because I would say the majority of people out there, it's the Wild West. Like, no one knows their rate, their worth, and there's actually a few services that you can sign up for and pay a monthly price. One of them is Social Blue Book. And I recently went on there, you link your YouTube account to their algorithm. They go through your views, your comments, your likes, demographics, everything. And they come out with a range of a price point.
Based on others that are doing the same thing.
That, and then with the data from YouTube itself. So say I'm getting 6 million views a month, I have 75% male that live in New York, Los Angeles, the UK. Those are highly desired regions and demographics. So based on that, then they make a price range.
And you think the market looks at that when you give it to them and say, look, I priced my stuff this way, here's the data that backs it up. That's why you're going to pay 10 cents a view, 5 cents a view, whatever it is you're negotiating for. What about the brand endorsements inside of what you do? Is that your third revenue stream, or have you figured out a way to use your brand and sell it in other ways?
That's what I'm developing currently, as far as building out a brand that comes from my audience that has the same passions as me, that would support this new brand that I'm actually launching in the next 2 months. Okay. It's very exciting.
Another question everybody asks about guys that travel like you, because I travel a lot too. How does that work with your relationship? Because you're not around much.
I'm fortunate enough that my girlfriend actually comes on a lot of my trips.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty much ideal.
Doubles your cost.
It does, but I'm also very lucky that my girlfriend Hannah, she feeds my creativity as well as I feed hers. So having her with me on the road.
Second voice.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Sometimes to silence my voice, other times to bring it up in certain instances, but
I get it. Well, that works. I mean, if you can build that into your relationship, then it's, all things to all people. I mean, so many people in the YouTube world want to get to where you are, where you're basically free. You're an entrepreneur that's been successful, and now your time is as you decide to spend it, which is a remarkable thing in life. As an entrepreneur, do you feel you've achieved your goal? Because entrepreneurship is a desire for personal freedom. It's not necessarily money. It's to decide how you want to spend your time. Very few people in life get to decide on their own, particularly at your age, how they're going to spend every minute of the day. I assume you've got there now.
I have. It's actually very interesting. I worked a traditional 9-to-5 job before I did this, so I truly know how that feels to have
how that sucks.
To have someone tell you when you can go to the bathroom, when you can eat, when you can come and go. And I have been very fortunate to build out a life where my schedule is truly how I want to shape it, which is the ultimate freedom. But at the same time, you know how it is. You have to have that mentality to structure your day because no one's telling you how to do it.
Which means you're probably working harder than you ever worked before. So the perception of freedom is you get to work as hard as you want, but you're just spending more time working, basically.
That's right.
That is the definition of entrepreneurship.
The days kind of blend together because there is no set schedule, because you could have a project with a client that is in Asia and you're in New York, so it's the next day for them on a Monday and it's Sunday night and you have to finish an edit. So the days kind of do blend together, and it is working, I would say, you can't even really quantify how much harder you work when you work for yourself versus a company.
And I think that's a good message to everybody actually watching this, because entrepreneurship is a desire for almost everybody, except not everybody can do it because it's so brutal on your time. It is really something that just consumes your life. And if you can't handle that, then you shouldn't try it.
Exactly.
That's a fair message.
But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I get that. But look, I really admire anybody that can do what you've done, because I know how hard it is. In the future of this business model you're working on, this 5-year plan, is international a big part of it? Are you going to continue to actually do more and more of it outside of the U.S.?
It is. Building out the luxury travel sector is a very, very large part of this plan. So working with...
So that means you're going to be hitting the road big time.
Yes.
The 22-hour flights.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, because Asia is becoming a big part of the story. The Middle East is actually emerging in some ways for tourism. Those are long hauls.
They are. Even I went to the Philippines last spring.
Long trip.
30-something hours of travel. Yeah.
And how frisky do you feel after that? Like, it must be tough to grind yourself into shooting some videos.
It's interesting because the jet lag just wears away. When you get to a beautiful destination and you look around and you see these sights that you've dreamed of when you were a kid, you kind of get that second wind and you're ready to go.
That's fantastic. All right, let's grind into the questions. I'm glad I've got you, because we're going to hear from different people, all kinds of different questions, and I want you to bring your perspective to it. That's what I love about Ask Mr. Wonderful. When we collaborate, sky's the limit, and just tell the truth. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Here's something from Samantha D.
What's the worst job you ever had, and how did you know it was time to quit?
Very apropos to what we were just talking about. What's the worst job you've ever had?
The worst job I ever had actually took place, I'm not even kidding you, a block away from where we're filming right now.
Really?
At I won't say the name, but it was a luxury hotel in New York City.
Yeah.
And this was when I was starting YouTube, so I took on a job that paid the bills, but I could still have the free time.
What were you doing for the hotel?
I was working at the front desk.
So just checking people in.
But as my YouTube grew, I slowly demoted myself to free up more time to pursue YouTube. So by the end of it, I was working at the pool. as a certified lifeguard at the pool, rolling towels and handing them to these guests.
You were basically asking the guys that were running the hotel, probably liking your work, saying, demote me, demote me, demote me.
It's interesting, at the time, no one even knew I was doing it at work. I kind of kept it, under wraps. And at this time, it was very early on, so I didn't really have my brand built out.
You just needed more free time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So why was that the worst job you ever had?
Trading your time for money is one of the worst things you can ever do, especially when it's not that much money.
Yeah, no kidding.
You can't get that time back.
Well, I think it's important that it was the motivational tool that you used on yourself to set yourself free. Look at it that way. Yeah. You saw how tough it can be. I had a similar experience. I only had one real job. I worked for a woman who owned an ice cream store called Magoo's in a mall. And she hired me as a scraper, for a scooper of ice cream. And then she said one day, scrape the gum off the floor. And I said, no, I'm a scooper, not a scraper. And she said, how about this? You're fired. And that's when I realized how the whole world worked. There's people that own the store, and there's people that scrape the shit off the floor. And you have to decide which direction you want to go. Scrapers aren't bad if you like scraping. Exactly. I don't like scraping. So that was the end of that. And I think it's been a good path, but I've realized it's been hard. It's a great question to start this journey with, because it is a decision about entrepreneurship and freedom in some ways, and you've made your decision, but I bet you've had some tough times along the way.
I mean, more than I can even recall. Yeah. So, you can relate to this, even especially the beginning when you start anything is always the hardest. It's an inverse pyramid. There's so many people trying to go up to this one tiny top, and everyone's at the bottom kind of clawing through that, and a lot of people stop. And I truly believe one of the...
You don't want to step on them on the way up. You got to be careful.
Exactly, but I think it's the people who just keep going that ultimately succeed. Yeah. You got to keep going if you believe in it enough.
It's great advice. Keep that thought. Let's move on. We're going to hear from... You just never know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates. Here's Jake.
Mr. O'Leary, in the workforce, how do you distinguish between talent that will excel and individuals that will not? In particular, is there any correlation between individuals that come from a more privileged background having less motivation or less probability to succeed than those that have to, quote unquote, earn their way?
Ooh, I like that. There's a class question in there too. How are you going to answer that one?
That's a tough one, because I don't believe that there is talent exists in certain fields, especially athletics. But I think that hard work will always beat talent if talent's not working hard. It's kind of
I know what you're saying there.
But as far as the class question, it's tough because I only have my own experiences to call from. I really don't think there's a distinguishing factor there. I think if you come from a less privileged background, you might have that drive to then change your circumstances where you started. Where I'm from, it's a very small town, 4,000 people. Everyone works, normal.
And they know each other.
So I do see that aspect of it. It's tough to kind of get out of there. I left home when I was 17. But then on the other side, if someone is from a more privileged background, they could get too comfortable, get too soft. But then at the same time, they can see how they got to that point or how their parents got them to that point. It all depends on work ethic.
Yeah. I think you just nailed it. For me, it is work ethic, because people work for different reasons. If you're already wealthy and somehow you've ended up with a trust fund or something, work is there to define who you are. There's nothing worse than being listless and rich, because people look at you and say, what are you doing with your life? They don't have an answer. Now, there's not many people like that. The other attribute I found that I've learned over experience is this. Great talent and great people that have, deliver results in their lives know how to work with others. They know how to work on teams. Even if they're running the company, people respect them, and that's very hard to do. If you don't have the ability to work with people, you have a very hard time in life. And the way I manifest that in my business is I've got a lot of investments in a lot of companies, and I've been an operator and I'm an investor now, and I guess a mentor in some ways. And I say, look, if you're going to make a big hire, put them on a program for 6 months. That gives them a chance to prove themselves with all the people around them. In other words, say, look, we're going to try this for 6 months. If it doesn't work out, both of us go our separate ways and everything's good. And that way you're not setting yourself up for failure on either side. And I've learned that to be a very, very good way of integrating people into businesses and determining whether they're going to work or they don't. And it's not a bad thing if it doesn't work out. It's much worse to bring them in making the assumption all will be great in 6 months, and then all of a sudden you've got to terminate a relationship. That's worse than falling in love, if you think about it. You hurt everybody in the business. And that's worked for me, and that's what I tell people. Hire slowly, fire quickly. That's what I do.
I will take that advice. That applies to my current situation in life. That's very, very good advice.
Yeah, it works. It really works. And you'll find that it gives everybody a chance to motivate themselves to make it happen. 6 months is a long time. Yeah. It really is. You'll prove everything that way. Good question, though. Mason Graham. Let's hear from Mason.
Hey, Mr. Wonderful. Thanks for listening to my message. This is Mason from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I recently got let go from my job as a video specialist for a marketing firm. And I've been working in the marketing industry for about 2 or 3 years now, making online video ads and different types of creatives. And I found that I actually really have a passion for it, since I'm also a guitar player and an artist, and I do a lot of stuff in the visual and musical space. But now that I'm unemployed, I find myself struggling to start back up again. I've always dreamed of being an entrepreneur, but since I worked a 9 to 5 for so long, I kind of got caught up in the security, and now I'm 24 and the risk seems kind of daunting, but it's still something that I really, really dream about doing.
Ooh, right at the cusp. You know, I'm going to let you start with this one because this guy's much closer to your age than mine, and you probably can connect with him pretty easily. You know, he's very happy, 9 to 5, then he wants to break out, and he realizes it ain't so easy.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is 24 is still very young. I just turned 30, and looking
And you're
back
an
at
old man, I take it back.
looking back at 24, that's 6 years. That's a long time. Like here,
yeah.
we're talking about this 5-year plan I have. I'll be 35. That's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
I would say you have to take the risk now. There's no other time to take it, especially if you've been let go from this company. I think you could look back at this as the greatest opportunity that he ever had. Yeah.
That's fair to say that. I know it's always a challenge, though, to make that leap. But you have to do it. You have to jump over the waterfall. That's basically it. You got to do it. The one thing I would say to somebody who's in the creative arts, because videography, editing, producing, as we are doing in these YouTube experiments, and businesses, in your case, it's fantastic. You have to let others know if you're going to sell your services that way that you're good at it, which means you got to generate a reel. If you were coming to me and saying, look, I want to do some videography for you, Mr. O'Leary, in one of your companies, I love to hear from you, but I want to see your work. I want to see what you can do. And you can do that online. Just send me a link of all your stuff and let me peruse it. I actually came up as an editor, film editor, years and years and years ago for the Olympics. And I still keep my editing talents because I like the chops. I think it helps you, do the things we love to do. And today, everything's video and everything's kind of, how can you communicate visually? So if you're going to market yourself, Mason, get a reel and start to get social behind you and start, be like a peacock, show your stuff, strut around. That's how you get gigs, wouldn't you say?
The one thing I'll add to that is you have to have the mentality that it's already your job. So Mason, you're just starting out with this. You have to have the mentality that you already are really doing this, and you're good at it. And you have to just show the world, and like you said, build the following and just put yourself out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I love to work with creative editors and videographers and always giving new people a chance, because you never know, you're going to discover something great. But if you can't see it, you can't sell it. That's the way I look at it in this business. All right, that was interesting. Let's hear from Christopher Poe. All right, Christopher, what do you got?
Hey, Mr. Wonderful. So I have a right quick question for you. What's more important to you, time, money, or health? Anyways, thank you.
Whoa.
That's a good one.
Talk about a Zen moment.
First?
You're going first, buddy. Time, money, or health?
Easily health.
Got to be, right?
Easily. I had a few experiences in the past year where my health was jeopardized while traveling. I got the worst case of food poisoning in my life.
Of course, and what you're doing, you're all over the place eating stuff you don't even know.
It was so bad I had to cancel a trip, cut it short. It was a month-long trip that ended up being 2 weeks.
You just couldn't kick it.
I couldn't finish a hike without actually passing out.
Dehydration, that's what happens.
Dehydration, just muscle soreness, but health is the ultimate.
Yeah.
That really put my health back on track, and it ended up being the best thing that happened in 2019, because then it facilitated a challenge video I did that ended up turning into a collaboration with Chris Hemsworth, the actor who launched a fitness app. So that, that issue of the health kind of turned into being the blessing in disguise.
But there's two others on the hit parade. There's time and money. Where do you rank them? You got to rank them. Here's the deal.
Money is last, time is second.
Time is second. That's very insightful. I'm going to look at it this way. I have to agree with you on health. And what I've realized, because I've got a lot of friends that are running into health issues, you got to live your life, honoring your body, because it's your vessel. And if you drink too much, you take drugs or anything like that. I'm getting into a thing now about diet and great foods and sleep, and that just gives you more energy. So I totally agree. Time and money, that's interesting, because you could argue that money buys you time to do things that you want to do. It doesn't get you more time, but it gets you in a place where you can spend your time in ways you want. But I don't want to be, I'm going to rank them slightly differently. I'm going to say health, 100%. Agree with you there. Then I'm going to go number 2 on money, because I'm going to say that money, if you pursue it, not for the greed of money, but the pursuit of freedom, lets you spend your time in the way you want to. But that is probably, Christopher Poe's question is probably one of the best I've had on Ask Mr. Wonderful. This guy's really screwing with me now when I think about it.
That's very insightful. I do see your side of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, in life, health, yes, time and money. Maybe love in there somewhere.
Love's in there.
Yeah. He didn't ask about love. But maybe that's the 4th thing. Probably on the bottom of the list at the end of the day. That's the problem. I don't want to be negative. Let's go to Brian H.
Good morning, Mr. O'Leary. This is Brian from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
I'm 27 years old, and after a few years of professional mediocrity, I've set new goals for myself. I want to build a net worth of $300 million and have decided I want to do that through real estate investment and property management, as well as having a couple of serious creative business ideas in the distilled spirits business and the therapeutic and healthcare services business. I'm becoming a licensed real estate agent to begin my path, but what would your advice be to someone that plans to build 9 figures of wealth through real estate and business ownership be?
Wow. Like, I've heard of ambition, but 300 million, that means you got to make 450 million pre-tax to end up with that. That's some serious stuff.
I love how you think.
I'm thinking. What do you think? I want to hear you on this one.
It's tough because I can't answer to that, but I don't have a net worth of $300 million.
Well, either does he.
That is true. I would say to you have your long-term goal, but break it down into what can I do today, this week, this month, then this year. And slowly put those steps into place and really build out a plan, and then ask yourself, why that number? I'm sure that he has some reasons behind that number, but I think just planning it out on the smaller level and then slowly getting wider and wider.
So I'm going to answer that question in a different way. First of all, Brian, you're not going to get to $300 million with a plan to be in multiple sectors at the same time. That ain't going to happen. If you think you can make it in real estate, you got to focus on real estate. You got to make your first turn on that. And you have to prove that you can make the first million. That's hard to do. It's next to impossible for most people. But to get to 300 million, you got to be very, very focused and understand and become very competitive in one sector where you have a competitive advantage, knowledge and experience and, the ability to deliver on these. But to actually do all of those things, that's not going to work. By the way, you don't need $300 million. The difference between having 50 and 300 is not a lot, to be honest with you. You can buy more shit that you don't need and a whole lot of houses. And I've learned with houses, if you can't spend 90 days there, you shouldn't own it. You should rent it. So basically you can only own 4 houses. 300 million is a ton of money. You should be happy with 50 million. You should be happy with 10 million. You should be happy with 1 million. Call me when you get to 1 million. I'm going to bring you back for more questions and ask you how tough it was to get that. Great question, though. I love ambition. 300 million, that's fucking crazy. But
Yeah, geez.
it's fantastic. Brian, I love you. That's so nuts. Remember, it's 450 before tax. So don't focus on 300. If you want 300, you got to get 450. That's $500 million. Round it out, $500 million. Good luck. if you get $500 million, you get a sports team in there somewhere. All right. Charles. I love these questions.
They're great.
You know they're real. Who talk about $350 million? The guy's upset me. I'm just thinking about it. All right.
Hello, Mr. Wonderful. Do us a favor, please show us the watch you wear during your episodes and explain, just a minute or so, explain what the watch is. I've been following your watch journey and I always wonder what you're wearing. What exactly are you wearing that episode? Thank you.
That's interesting. Well, Erik, we started our conversation, we just met. Yeah. The first thing we started talking about were watches, right? Because I looked at that on your wrist and said, what is that? How did you get that? That is not an Apple Watch. You're not wearing consumer electronics. Why are you wearing that watch?
This watch, it's a Rado Captain Cook. I worked with this company, Rado, last year. Did some research. They are a Swiss company. And to be honest, I just like the style, I like the aesthetic.
It's a sports-looking face. It's a travel watch in some ways. It's a very clean face. It's beautiful. It looks terrific. And it's of the ilk of the steel watch craze that's everywhere around the world today. I'm a huge watch collector, so I love a question like this. I could go on for hours. I won't. But I always travel with 2 or 3 watches every day, and I try and bring 2 themes into my style of watches. One is going to be gold or off gold, and the other would be silver. So today, by happen chance, I have, this is a AP, their new series called the Code 1159 Perpetual. There's only 100 of these made in the world. I wanted to be one of those owners. It's the only one in the world with a red band on it. Everybody knows I wear red bands for continuity on television, but this is a very complicated watch. The face is rather remarkable. Is not a simple dial. It's a complicated one, and it works well with gold jewelry, gold tie pin maybe, or whatever in the red band. But I also today am traveling with a classic in the steel face, blue face, huge theme out there. This is a Vacheron Overseas, which is a classic watch, very crisp and clean, very much like what you're wearing on your wrist there. So I can change from a sporty look to a more conservative one later tonight when I go to a dinner I'm having with an ambassador. So this is what I'll be wearing tonight. I'll probably wear this for some portion of the afternoon. I just like to wear a different watch.
That's interesting. You travel with, you said 3?
Generally 3. Today I have 2 because I'm only going to be away for 2 days. So I usually wear 3 watches in one day. Morning, noon, at night. I have so many watches, if I don't wear them, they get upset. A watch has a soul, you got to wear it. But these are the 2 I'm traveling with right now. I love this piece. But they all have stories, and I think if you're a watch collector and you get this disease, it better be after you make $350 million, because these things are really expensive. But they're great investments too. My watch collection, because I'm an investor, I track its market value every day. It's up 28% over last year. Certain pieces have gone up more than others, but I like to do it that way. Anyways, I thought this was really interesting. You brought a whole different dynamic, this travel freedom thing you've got, but you have a hard road ahead. You're going to travel millions of miles on this 5-year journey.
Mm-hmm. I would say that when I look at, what I've done on YouTube, it's not even the tip of the iceberg of what I aim to do. It's very much so the beginning, and it's going to change a ton in the next few years. But yeah, there's a lot left to do, a lot of miles to travel, a lot of videos to make.
But when you started, I want to leave on this concept because I'm sure this happened to you. 5-year plans are great ideas, but shit's going to happen. You know that. What do you think about your ability to pivot?
I think the one thing you have to do on YouTube to survive is to pivot. I think that when I first set out to do this, I gave myself 5 years in New York. I said, if I can work for myself in 5 years, that was my level of success, the idea of time. If I can manage all my time in 5 years, I made it. That's success. I've set new benchmarks that I have to measure, but throughout that 5 years, the pivots were enormous. Even in the past year, I've really gotten into luxury real estate on my channel. I think that is the biggest series now, second to the travel, is touring these multi-million-dollar properties.
How are you getting access to them? Is your notoriety on YouTube getting you access to these, and they want to market them, they want you to go through them?
It's an interesting story because it was travel that got me the first access point, which was through Ryan Serhant, the realtor. He was going to Africa, had some questions, saw he was starting a channel. We had a meeting. I said, hey, Ryan, let me have access to one of your most expensive listings. I'll film a tour, put it on my channel. I know those do well. It got 5 million views.
Just to get access to see something as crazy as that house.
Yeah. And then from there, it kind of snowballed. And now it's at the point where people are reaching out every day, even just people looking to sell their properties to then list them with me. And I'm getting to that process of actually doing that.
That is a total pivot. You created a new business platform. That's exactly what happened there.
Exactly.
That's very cool.
That's just the example of you kind of have to adapt on YouTube to certain trends, but still stay true to yourself. Through travel, I love staying in different hotels, living spaces, seeing how places make me feel.
Does that mean you're going to step into ownership in real estate? Are you about to buy something? I can sense that.
That's the big goal for 2020 is my girlfriend and I to purchase a loft and do a big renovation series.
Well, I want to tell you something right now as Mr. Wonderful. I forbid you to do that unless you get married, because that's a huge asset and no prenup. You got to be together. You got to force yourselves together. So I'm telling you right now, do not buy that place unless you get married.
That's great advice.
Then you buy it after you're married, and then you have to live together with the huge asset, the mortgage and everything else. But so many disasters of people that are dating that buy real estate. I forbid you.
We'll be married by then.
Very good. Really
you so
enjoyed it,
much.
Eric. That was fantastic. Thank you. Listen, that was terrific. I love giving out marital advice. It's just terrific. I love that too. So anyways, until next time, thank you so much. Great questions on Ask Mr. Wonderful this week. Eric, you were terrific.
Thank you so much.
Ciao.